In this video, we will see how to solve operations with fractions. Before starting solving operations, let's remember what is the concept of a fraction. A fraction is a part of a whole. It is expressed as one whole number on top of another whole number. The bottom whole number is called the denominator, and it represents how many equal parts the whole is divided into. The top whole number is called the numerator, and it represents how many of the equal parts are used. If you see the pictures, they are representing different types of fractions. The first one is 1/8. That means that we divided the circle into 8 equal parts, and we're using 1. The second one is divided in 4 equal parts, and we're only using 1. That means we have 1/4. The third one, we also divided into 8 equal parts, but we're using 5/8. And the last one, we have 9 out of 12. In the case of the last one, we see that this fraction can be simplified because both the numerator and the denominator are divisible over 3. 9 over 3 is 3, and 12 over 3 is 4. That means that 9/12 can be simplified to 3/4. And we can see this in the picture because the same circle can be divided into 4 equal parts. And we see that 9 pieces out of 12 is the same as 3 pieces out of 4. Now let's start with the first operation, addition and subtraction. You can only add or subtract fractions when they have a common denominator. Let's apply this to these examples. If we see the first and the second examples, they both have common denominators. That means that we can add them directly. 1/12 plus 7/12 is 8/12. And 13/5 minus 3/5 is 10/5. In this case, this fraction can be simplified, and we actually can divide 10 over 5, and we get a whole number. So we can do that and get 2. I always write the final answer in a box. Okay, now, in the third and fourth example, we see that we have different denominators, so we can't add them directly. To add them, first we need to change these fractions into common denominators. To do that, the quick way when we have 2 fractions is multiplying the denominators. 2 times 3 gives us 6. Now we divide that number over what we had. 6 over 2, that gives us 3, times 1, 3. Now we write the addition and do the same thing with the second fraction. 6 over 3, 2, times 1, 2. Now we changed both fractions to sixths. That means that they have a common denominator, and we can add directly. 3 plus 2, 5, and they are 6. Since we can't simplify anymore this fraction, this is the final answer. I just want to explain what we did here. We changed 1/2 and 1/3 into 6. Another way of writing this part would be, instead of writing them over the same line, 1/2 is the same as 3/6 plus, and 1/3 is the same as 2/6. Okay, so this is what we did. We changed the halves into 6 and the third into 6. So we have common denominators and we can add directly. We are going to do the same thing with the fourth fraction, where we see how to solve additions and subtractions when we have more than 2 fractions. We also have to change this into common denominators. We have thirds, fourths, and halves. We can go ahead and multiply the 3 numbers to get a common denominator, but when we do that, we can get big numbers if we have large numbers in our denominators. So we can use a method called the least common multiple to find the number that we are going to use as our common denominator. If you don't know how to do the to find the least common multiple, you can watch the video for least common multiple. But a quick way to do that also is to check if the biggest number is a multiple of the other numbers, in this case 4. But in this problem, 4 is not a multiple of 3, so we can't use 4. And we can multiply them times each other to see if we find a number that is a multiple of the 3 of them. 3 times 4 is 12. And 12 is a multiple of 3, of 4, and of 2. So we can use number 12 as our common denominator. Now we do the same process we did before. 12 over 3, 4 times 4, 16. Now we do the same with the second fraction. 12 over 4 is 3 times 5, 15. Now we have a subtraction. 12 over 2 is 6 times 1, 6. We change these 3 fractions into twelfths, and now we can do the operation directly. 16 plus 15 minus 6 gives us 25. And these are twelfths. 25 twelfths can't be simplified anymore, so this is our final answer. Okay, so this is how to solve additions and subtractions. Now let's see our next operation, multiplication. To multiply fractions, we multiply the numerators and then multiply the denominators. Okay, so this one is pretty simple. We do the multiplication directly. 1 times 1, 1. 4 times 2, 8. Okay, we multiply numerators and denominators. And it's the same when we have more than 2 fractions. Okay, 5 times minus 4, minus 20, times 1, minus 20. 2 times 3, 6, times 2, 12. Okay, so it's negative 20 twelfths. But we see that 20 and 12 are both divisible over 2, but also divisible over 4. So I use always the larger number. That's, in this case, is over 4. And it gives us 5/3 negative. Okay. Now let's see how to solve division. To divide fractions, multiply the first fraction by the reciprocal of the second fraction. Just so you remember, the reciprocal of a number, like 2/3, is the inversion of those numbers, 3/2. Okay, that would be the reciprocal. Okay. Another definition is the other fraction that when you multiply them, it gives you 1. Now, let's see this process with the examples. 2/9 over 3/4. So the instruction says to multiply the first fraction times the reciprocal of the second fraction, in this case 4/3. That would give us 2 times 4, 8, and 9 times 3, 27. Okay, since we can simplify this, this is our final answer. Okay, so this is correct. But there's another way of seeing this division. Let me rewrite the problem again. 2/9 over 3/4. Okay, we can also see this as cross multiplying. That would be 2 times 4, and then we write it above the line as the numerator. 2 times 4, 8, and then 9 times 3, and write it below as the denominator. 9 times 3, 27. Okay, so cross multiplying gives us also division. Now, when we have a vertical fraction like this one, it's like having a fraction of 2 fractions. It's the same thing, but just ordered differently. In this case, we multiply the outer numbers and write it above. 3 times 2, 6. And then multiply the inner numbers and write them below. 4 times 1, 4. Okay? But we see that we can get half of both numbers to simplify. 3 halves. We can't simplify anymore, so this is our final answer. Now let's see how to solve when we have complex fraction. If we see we have a whole operation that's representing the numerator and another complete operation that is representing the denominator. So first we need to solve completely the numerator and then the denominator to be able to write the final problem, that answer. So let's start solving the numerator. And we know that we need to find common denominator between 3 and 5. That would be 15. Okay, 15 over 3 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 15 over 5 is 3 times 1, 3. Okay, we're not done yet, but that's the first step to solve the addition in the numerator. Let's do the next step for the denominator. The denominator is a multiplication, and we know that those are solved directly, so we multiply. 4 times 1 is 4, and 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, we still need to solve the separation for the numerator. 10 plus 3 is 13 fifteenths over 4 sixths. Now we have a vertical division, and we already saw how to solve this. We said outer numbers, we multiply them and write them above the line. It is 13 times 6, that gives us 78. And then 15 times 4, that gives us 60. 78 over 60. Okay, we see that both numbers are divisible over 2. So we simplify by dividing. 78 over 2 gives us 39. And 60 over 2 gives us 30. But we see that both numbers are still divisible over the same number. In this case is over 3. 39 over 3 is 13. And 30 over 3 is 10. 13 over 10 can't be divided anymore, simplified anymore. So this is our final answer. This was how to solve operations with fractions. Thank you for watching this video.